Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Meta here, and today we're going to be taking a look at something that is a massive surprise. I'm sure you guys have already seen the news. A new mini set has just been announced, and it is called Shining Revelry, and it is going to be releasing in just a week on March 27th. This is crazy. Not something that I was personally expecting. I think the rumors and the leaks originally were that after Triumphant Light, we were going to get about a 2-month period before A3, the next full set, came out, but now it seems that actually we are getting another mini set. This is a little bit unprecedented. I was surprised. We don't typically get 2 mini sets between full sets, so there will be a full new booster pack that will be coming here in just a week. Very, very exciting. So there was a trailer. I'm not going to watch the trailer here on the video. You guys have probably already seen it. But what we're going to do today is what we always do when new cards are announced and new things are happening in Pokemon Pocket, is we're going to review these cards and we're going to analyze them from a competitive standpoint and how they're going to be impacting the metagame. This is a very welcome change in my mind. I think Triumphant Light brought a lot of really, really good cards, particularly Arceus, which has been dominating the metagame, so it'll be really nice to shake things up, at least slightly. We'll have to see how much things get shaken up. I'm sure Arceus will still be really relevant, but at least things will be changing at least a little bit leading up for this next month or so until we probably get the next full set. So Shining Revelry A to B is coming. Very, very exciting. So let's take a look at some of the new cards. Now, the number one mechanic that I think a lot of people are probably excited for is that we're getting shiny Pokemon, and this is shiny Pokemon for both just the normal, rarity cards, but also EX Pokemon as well. They look incredibly cool. They have this really cool artwork here, and then the Pokemon themselves, of course, are shiny, so they have a different color. But yeah, on top of shiny Pokemon, we have actually got just a lot of new cards. Now, something that's interesting is that we're seeing yet again, new Charizard, and if we go down, there's actually a new Pikachu as well. It's not super surprising that we're getting like multiple renditions of same popular Pokemon. Welcome to the Pokemon trading card game. Things like Charizard and Pikachu are always going to get new cards. But anyway, let's get right into it. So the first Pokemon we're going to talk about here is the new Charizard EX. And yeah, we already have a Charizard EX, and it's pretty good. It's something that we've talked about a lot on the channel. In fact, it's one of probably the strongest cards of all time in Pokemon Pocket. But we have a new Charizard EX, and it is very interesting. So 180 HP, Stage 2 EX Pokemon, same as the other Charizard. Retreat cost of 3. It's got 2 attacks. The first one doesn't do any damage, but it is called Stoke. So for 1 fire energy, we take 3 fire energies from our energy zone. That's 3 energies on top of our attachment for the turn, and then we attach it to this Pokemon. So Charizard EX is able to set itself up. However, you have to use this attack, basically costing yourself a turn in order to set this up. So this is, of course, an incredibly strong attack here. It kind of allows us to bypass needing to use Moltres to set up Charizard, even though we might already do that anyway if we're playing Charizard. And then we have 5 energies. Steam Artillery, it does 150, so a little bit less of a strong attack, but there's no downside to this attack. We're not discarding any energies or anything like that. Just a high energy attack cost and a pretty high damage attack, 150. If we're being honest with you, this card isn't that I guess amazing in my mind. You got to compare it again. In this video, I'm going to be comparing basically all of these EX Pokemon to Arceus EX because that is the card, the benchmark really. Arceus is a basic Pokemon for 3 energies. It does 130. So when you compare things like Charizard to that, there's really not much that you can say other than that this card is fairly weak. Yes, we're able to set up Charizard with the Stoke attack, but realistically, it's going to take us 3 or 4 turns to evolve into this Charizard EX, and then we have to waste one of our first turns, or if not, we have to always waste our first turn to set itself up and accelerate those energies to ourselves with Stoke. So it's interesting. I mean, this could be actually fairly decent as a late game attacking option if we had maybe other strong Pokemon to lead off that maybe had a lower energy attack cost, but I don't know. It's really interesting. 150 is also a bit of an awkward number. However, we will see that there is a way to get around that number or to increase that number in one of the new cards. But yeah, 150 is a little bit of an awkward number. I think with Giant Cape, a lot of Pokemon are above that 150 HP threshold. And like I said, it's got 5 energies to attack. It's a lot of energies, and really the only way we can accelerate fire energies is with this Stoke attack or with Moltres. So when I look at this card, I don't think it's terrible. And in fact, like, we don't have all of the context is probably the one thing I'll say is that, we were looking at these new cards, but we don't have all of the information regarding whether or not, they're going to be great or not great, depending on the other cards that release in the set that haven't been announced yet. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But this Charizard card is very interesting. It's cool that it can set itself up, but like I said, you kind of want to you know, if you're playing a stage 2 Pokemon, it has to either be really easy to get going or it has to be extremely powerful. This Charizard card seems a little bit awkward in the middle, but definitely pretty cool. Next up, we have Lucario EX, and Lucario is a very, very interesting one because we also have the Fighting Coach Lucario, which is not an EX, but it allows us to increase the damage. So in a deck like this, if we're playing Lucario EX, if we're playing a Lucario EX deck, we might also just include copies of the normal Lucario to maybe buff our Lucario EX's damage. So it does have 150 HP for a stage 1 Pokemon. That's a decent amount. Nothing too crazy. We've seen higher HP amounts, things like Executor have 160, but 150 is a pretty decent number with Giant Cape. That's 170. That's definitely a good amount of HP for sure. And then we have Aura Sphere, so just one attack on this thing. Retreat cost of 2, weak to Psychic, by the way. 3 fighting energies. It does Aura Sphere, 100 damage, and then it also does 30 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So 130 total damage for 3 fighting energies on a stage 1 Pokemon is not terrible. Yes, we can actually boost this with the other Fighting Coach Lucario, so that only works for the active, so we would be doing 120 to the active and then 30 to the bench. That's 150. That's actually a really good number. I don't mind this card really at all, and like I said, since we're already playing Riolu to evolve into Lucario EX, it might make sense to just play maybe 1 or 2 copies of that other Lucario deck. Of course, we don't really have any way currently, at least at the moment, to accelerate or generate extra fighting energies, so 3 energies is kind of steep. Like, technically speaking, yes, Arceus also takes 3 energies, but we have Dialga, which, you know, we can accelerate those energies to Lucario, so unless we get some further fighting type support, I think it will be kind of interesting. One thing to note, though, is that with the buff from Fighting Coach and hitting for weakness on an Arceus, we are doing 140, so without Giant Cape, 140 is enough to KO Arceus, so I like this card. I think that it has potential, it really does. If we just had maybe some way to generate additional fighting energies a little bit more consistently, I think that this 3 energy attack cost wouldn't feel so bad, but unfortunately, a card like this, if we're going first and we're behind on energies anyway, it can feel just a little bit too slow. That's just sort of my opinion, but I do actually like this card, and I think it does actually have some potential. Like I said, we don't have all of the context. We could be getting some more, you know, energy accelerating, you know, cards for fighting type Pokemon. We'll have to see, but either way, definitely an interesting card nonetheless. Next up, we have Pachirisu, and this one I'm actually super excited about. This is not an EX Pokemon, just a normal small Pachirisu. 70 HP, retreat cost of 1, weak to fighting, and it's got the Plasma attack. So very similar to, what was it? I think it was Dedenne, which had a, you know, a 10 damage attack, 1 energy basic Pokemon, but it paralyzed. This attack here does 10 damage, but you take an electric energy from your energy zone and you attach it to one of your benched lightning Pokemon. So very lightning specific here. So we can't pair this with any, you know, colorless Pokemon like an Arceus, but we are able to now generate energies even more consistently with Pachirisu, and I actually really like this card. I think that this opens up a lot of really interesting combinations. For example, basically what we're able to do with Pachirisu is combine it with things like X-Speed and Dawn, and then we are able, the Dawn supporter card, and then we're basically able to maybe get 3 energies on a separate Electric-type Pokemon in 2 turns. So it's a way to kind of energy cheat. We could do that previously with Magneton, but now instead of having to have an evolution Pokemon, we just have a basic Pokemon that is also a really strong leadoff. So I think that Pachirisu is actually a really strong card. We'll see. There is a new Electric-type EX Pokemon. It's a Pikachu, by the way. Spoiler, it's a new Pikachu EX. But something like that, or even Zapdos, for example, you know, we could play Zapdos, Pachirisu, we could play Dons, we could play X-Speed, we lead off with Pachirisu, we Plasma, that's an energy attachment to Pachirisu to use the attack, and then an additional energy to maybe our bench to Zapdos. Next turn, we X-Speed out, attach to the Zapdos, play Dawn, and then boom, turn 2, or our turn 3, we have those 3 energies on Zapdos. So it is a pretty interesting card. I think that it has potential. A card like this is going to be extremely relevant if there are strong Electric-type Pokemon, which there are, realistically, I think, already some pretty strong Electric-type Pokemon. We already have Magnezone, we have Pikachu, we have Zapdos, so we also have Pachirisu EX as well, so I don't think it's a terrible card, but I think the real value with this card is probably going to be setting up, you know, a stronger attacking Electric-type Pokemon. But we'll have to see exactly how this card impacts the metagame and how, I guess I would say, how relevant Electric-type is. Right now, it's not very relevant. I think that a lot of the Electric-type cards are a little bit undertuned, but I think that might change. But I really like Pachirisu. I think that it's a really cool card. Any cards that generate extra energy and accelerate energies are oftentimes pretty good, especially basic Pokemon like this. But next up, let's take a look at Wiglet. So there is a Wugtrio EX card, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. So Wiglet here, basic HP is 60, 1 energy, spring out attack, retreat cost of 1, weak to electric. This reads that one of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random and you do 30 damage to it. So it's basically like Hitmonlee, but it's just sort of random. So basically, whether or not our opponent has Pokemon on the bench or not, we're basically just doing 30 damage for 1 energy. It's just random. It could be the active Pokemon. It could be the bench Pokemon. Either way, it's not a terrible attack, realistically. I don't think we would really mind either way. There may be some scenarios where that 30 damage might need to go on a specific Pokemon, but as we'll see with Wugtrio, it's actually, they go together fairly well. I actually do think this card is totally fine. Let's fast forward and actually, you know what, we'll save Wugtrio EX later down the line. Here's a Varoom here, so we are getting the evolution of Varoom. What's it called? I forget. I honestly forget. This set has shiny Pokemon, but it also has Scarlet and Violet Pokemon, which is why we see the Wugtrio, and now we have Reveroom. Is that the, I forget the evolved form of it. But it does Headbutt. It's a Metal type Pokemon, 10 damage. I don't think we've seen Reveroom or its evolved form yet, but either way, there it is. And then we have this new Tatsugiri. This is the full art version. There's going to be a normal version of Tatsugiri as well. 70 HP. Rain Splash, 1 water energy, does 20 damage, retreat cost of 1. It's got the ability that your active Dondozo has no retreat cost. So this is a little interesting. So Tatsugiri, if you haven't played Scarlet and Violet, is a Pokemon that pairs with Dondozo in VGC and in the video games. In the TCG, there's going to be some synergy here, of course, which is really, really cool. So Tatsugiri, like the way that it works in the video game is that there's three different types of Tatsugiri, and they buff Dondozo for different ways depending on which version of Tatsugiri you have. So we might be getting that to the TCG. This one seems to be focusing around the orange Tatsugiri here, but there's a yellow one, as you see down here low in the bottom left, and then the red one. So we might actually have 3 different Tatsugiri cards that maybe all buff Dondozo to different degrees, and I think that would be a really, really cool sort of mechanic, right? Where you have your Dondozo in the active spot, and that's the Pokemon that you're really attacking with, and then maybe you fill your bench with all of the different Tatsugiri types, and then they buff Dondozo in a variety of different ways. This one's giving free retreat. There might be another one that buffs its damage, or maybe increases its HP or reduces the damage taken. So I really, really think that's a really cool idea. We also, of course, have a lot of support. Dondozo's a really big Pokemon. It's a slow, high HP, high attack Pokemon, so it's going to be probably similar of a card to something like Snorlax, where maybe it has a high energy attack cost, but it does a lot of damage, has a lot of HP, which is really interesting because we have Irida, we have Giant Cape, we have Rocky Helmet, we have Misty. So Dondozo will likely be a water Pokemon. I think it's got to be a water type Pokemon. So that's interesting. So I think this archetype could be kind of cool. It could be one of those, the new sort of niche single prize archetype of this particular mini set. That's just my opinion. Maybe we don't. Maybe I'm just completely way off and we're not going to be getting other types of Tatsugiri cards. But either way, keep in mind that I think that Dondozo might be its sort of own new archetype, which could be really, really interesting and really fun. But keep that in mind. That's just Tatsugiri. We've inferred a lot from this card, I'll be honest. But that's just sort of my own headcanon, my assumption of what we're going to be getting. And then we have a new Sprigatito. So again, Cry for Help. This is somewhat relevant of an attack here. You put 1 random grass Pokemon from your deck into your hand, so this could be an evolution Pokemon. Now, we don't know what Meowscarada looks like, but we are going to be getting a Meowscarada card. It could be an EX, it could not be. Who knows? Call for help or Cry for Help. He's actually a pretty relevant attack here. It allows you to thin out your deck and search your deck for Pokemon. We've seen this effect before, like in a Call for Family card, so I mean, they haven't really been like relevant in the metagame, but I mean, an effect like this is technically somewhat relevant, especially if it evolves into a strong Pokemon. It might just be a good bonus to have an effect like this in your deck. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. We don't have all of the information, but yeah, Cry for Help, pretty interesting. And then we have a new Pinsir. This was shown in the trailer. That's why the image is a little bit interesting. But this is 90 HP. This is not the first Pinsir. This might be the 3rd or 4th Pinsir card that we have, which is funny. Again, I don't know why they keep giving us new versions of old Pokemon, but I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I probably should have looked this up, but I'm pretty sure that Pinsir is one of the Pokemon that works with the Berry supporter card that people play with Snorlax. I think it's like Pinsir and Snorlax and then like one other Pokemon. So technically speaking, if I'm wrong, I might be completely off here, but I'm pretty sure that Pinsir works with Berry, which means that we will be able to use Guillotine Rush, this attack, for only 1 energy, 1 grass energy, which is very interesting because this attack reads it does 50 damage, and you flip a coin until you get tails. This attack does 40 more damage for each heads. So This is kind of a little bit more of an RNG-based version of like the same Snorlax deck that we have. But technically speaking, you could flip a couple heads and then do bang 130 damage on your first turn if you do have Berry in hand. So that's kind of crazy. I'm not going to lie. This is kind of a meme archetype, but technically speaking, it's another card that we could pair with Snorlax in those Berry decks to potentially do, excuse me, to try to cheat out a pretty strong early attack. 50 damage, like if you whiff on the coin flips, it can feel kind of bad. If you get one that's 90 damage, there is a lot of Pokemon where doing 90 damage on turn 1 would be pretty significant. So I think that this could be somewhat relevant. I'm not going to lie. 90 HP as well. You could throw a Rocky Helmet on this thing, do some extra damage. It's interesting. I'm not going to lie. It's very interesting, but I don't know how I feel about it. That is if it works with Berry. I think it does. I mean, I don't know. Comment below if I'm wrong, but definitely interesting to see that we might be getting kind of a one-turn KO deck like this. That, of course, is a bit RNG dependent because we need Berry to do the combo. But yeah, just interesting nonetheless. I figured it was worth mentioning. Now let's go to the heavy hitter here. This is Red. I'm going to scroll down to the full art version. This one's going to be in the thumbnail. Red, this card is crazy. I was actually pretty surprised that we got a card like this. This is basically power creep in effect. So very similar to Giovanni. However, this is a card that boosts the damage we do to our opponent's active Pokemon by 20, not 10, but 20, as long as they are EX Pokemon. For the most part, every Pokemon that people play in the game right now, at least that in the active spot to attack with, is going to be an EX Pokemon. If you think about all of the decks, basically speaking, almost all decks are going to be, or all, meta decks are going to be playing EX Pokemon to have in the active spot to attack with, which means that 20 damage is really significant. More often than not, I think that this is a card that's going to replace Giovanni in most decks. And you may be wondering, why is 20 damage such a big deal when we already have Giovanni and it's 10 damage? 20 is a lot. Like in Pokemon Pocket, doing 20 extra damage is significant because now we have a direct counter to Giant Cape. There's a big reason why Giant Cape was one of the best cards in the game, and that was because it was 20 extra HP and we only had Giovanni to increase our damage by 10. So now we have a direct counterplay to Giant Cape, which means that having 20 extra HP isn't always going to be that relevant because now most decks are going to be at least somewhat able to do 20 extra damage to you. And that is really significant. I think that's actually going to make a lot of other cards pretty relevant. Like a lot of the Pokemon, like things like Gyarados that do 140, just as an example, are now doing potentially 160, counteracting those Giant Capes, which we often see on these Pokemon that have 140 HP. So Red is extremely relevant. This is basically a card that I think I was actually kind of surprised that we got it, but now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of makes a lot of sense. So basically the direct counterplay to something like Giant Cape, 20 extra HP, or damage rather, against most Pokemon that you're going to be facing up against. Very, very relevant. This card will see a tremendous amount of play. Also really cool, just like lore here, that like Red is sort of the power creep card to Giovanni. Of course, in the original series, Red and Giovanni were like enemies to each other, right? Just kind of a fun fact. I don't know, but Red is crazy. We also have Blue, right, which reduces by 20, so which is, again, just pretty funny observations as well. But shout out to this card. This card is crazy, and this will probably see play in basically every deck in Pokemon Pocket. And I think it will have to, honestly, and I think it's going to make Giant Cape a lot less relevant, but what it's going to do is going to fix a lot of the damage issues that I think a lot of decks have. Extra reach like this is very, very important. There's so many scenarios of decks that just do a little bit not enough damage, and that's a big reason why they just don't see play. Maybe they're consistent, maybe they have good pace, maybe they're good aggressive decks, but they just don't do like enough damage. So now we can play 2 copies of Red and just get over that hump and potentially make a lot of previously existing cards and attacking Pokemon much more relevant now. So this card, very, very impactful. This might be one of the most impactful cards from this entire expansion. That's just my opinion. But we also have Iono, and Iono is a card that is in Pokemon, the official Pokemon trading card game, and now it's coming to Pokemon Pocket, and they're similar. I actually forget what the other Iono does. It's different, but this card reads that each player shuffles the cards in their hand into their deck, and then they draw that many cards. So this is a really interesting card here because basically, when you play Iono, like let's just say you have 5 cards in your hand, and one of those is Iono. When you play Iono, it's no longer in your hand, which basically means you're going -1 card value to get however many extra cards or new cards that are in your hand, but you're not guaranteed that these are going to be new cards because you shuffle your hand into your deck and then you draw that many cards. So you could get the exact same hand. A card like this is very interesting for a variety of different reasons. I don't necessarily know how it's really strange, isn't it? I don't know how good this card's going to be. Technically, it is hand disruption, so from our opponent's perspective, we can force them to shuffle their hand into their deck, but we don't know what's in our opponent's hand. So this is a card that really would only be relevant in those specific cards that allow you to see your opponent's hand or see the top card of your deck for something like that. Even though I guess that wouldn't really matter. But yeah, I think the new unknown card lets us look at our opponent's hand, which, maybe Iono with unknown could be interesting. I don't know. This is a very strange card. In Pokemon Pocket, hand disruption and things like this, and just any kind of draw is interesting. Like I said, you're basically going -1 card value for just like looking at a new hand. I mean, it could be relevant, but again, for the most part in Pokemon Pocket, we are like you're basically guaranteed to start with a basic Pokemon, so it's not really relevant early in the game. And then of course you're not guaranteed to get any new cards, so it's just interesting, right? Like each player shuffles the cards in their hand into their deck, and then they draw that many cards. So I don't know how I feel about Iono. I don't think it's going to be that good, other than in maybe control decks where you're playing like things like unknown, so you can look at your opponent's hand. I don't know exactly. I mean, I could be missing the point with this card. I definitely could be. It just, in Pokemon Pocket, cards like this just aren't, I don't know, they're not super relevant, but it is interesting that we're getting a card like this. Comment below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions down below. I'm probably missing something about this card. Maybe it's super broken. I don't know. There's just maybe something in my head that I'm not remembering or thinking about. Maybe the card's not good. I don't know, but I would love to hear your guys' opinions about Iono down in the comment section below, so definitely let me know. Next up here. Okay, so here's the thing. We're getting basically, and here's the booster pack, by the way. Pretty cool. We see the Wugtrio, we see Beedrill, Charizard, Pachirisu, Lucario. If we go down a bit, there should be, where was it here? Yeah, so we're getting all of these solo deck or trial deck missions, but basically they've revealed a ton of new EX Pokemon in these like starter decks. So that's what these images are up here. We have a ton of new EX Pokemon. We can kind of assume that this is basically all of the new EX Pokemon we're getting in the set. But anyway, these are the cards that I think we're probably going to spend the most time talking about, even though we're already 21 minutes into the video. First up is going to be Tinkaton EX. So this is a Steel-type Pokemon, a Stage 2 Steel-type Pokemon. 170 HP, which is, like, I think on the lower end of Stage 2 Pokemon. And then it has Terrific Thumping. So here's the description down here. 2 metal and a colorless. Terrific Thumping does 80 damage. Flip a coin. If heads, it does 80 more damage. Okay, so 80 or 160. So on average, technically, we're doing, what is it, 120 damage for 3 energies on a Stage 2 Pokemon? It's not great. Technically speaking, like, we could high roll and then just pop off for 160 turn after turn. There's no drawback to the attack other than the inconsistency of it. But I don't know, a card like this just doesn't seem that good to me. Like, yes, we can play it with Dialga, and yes, technically we can hit for 160 turn after turn. That could be relevant, but what if we're just hitting for 80 turn after turn? It just doesn't feel that great. We do have a lot of HP, so I don't know. A card like this could be good because we do have Dialga, we do have Giant Cape, we have Red to do, more damage to EX Pokemon. We have Giant Cape as well. So this is a card that's really interesting to me. Typically, these sort of RNG-based cards that don't have guaranteed damage aren't great. There are some examples of ones that are decent, like Executor is obviously pretty decent. I think there's some other ones that's off the top of my head that I forget. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting card. Like I said, it could be really good because, in Pokemon Pocket, like you kind of want to go with like the best case scenario. And best case scenario, this card is really strong. You're one-hit killing a lot of Pokemon in the game. You have a lot of HP. 3 energy is pretty easy to set up with Dialga. This is a card that you could just throw into like Dialga and an Arceus. It could just be like another late game sweeper. But I think for the most part, like you would just play this with Dialga, and then you would hopefully easily go into Dialga and then just kind of ride out for a couple turns until Tinkaton is able to get evolved. And then hopefully by then we're able to just sweep through our opponent. Again, it's going to be a little bit RNG dependent, but you never know. Very interesting card nonetheless. 160 is a crazy amount of damage, but 80 for 3 energies on a Stage 2 Pokemon is definitely underwhelming. So, it is what it is. We've already seen Charizard. We have a Giritina EX. So this didn't come out in Space Time Smackdown, and it didn't come out in Triumphant Light, but we are getting Giritina EX here finally, just in the next set, which is interesting. I don't know. But this thing is very strange. So 150 HP here. I'm comparing this to Mewtwo. Mewtwo is really the only other basic EX Pokemon that's a Psychic type that we have to compare to something like this. But it's got the ability Broken Space Bellow. So retreat cost of 2, weak to dark, 150 HP. Once during your turn, you may take a Psychic energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So, okay, so we're able to generate Psychic energies, but then when we do it, our turn is over. This isn't actually that bad, and I know, I know it doesn't seem that good, but you got to think about it like this: we have Dawn, and we have Pokemon that basically don't need to attack to provide value. So a card like this, technically speaking, if we're going first, we can go +1 on the energies. and then our turn ends, but we would have ended our turn without attaching energy anyway. So this is a card that, and you can use this on the bench as well. It doesn't have to be in the active spot. So this is a Pokemon, and by the way, the attack does 130 and it does 20 damage to itself. So not great. I mean, it's 4 energies, so it's kind of steep. If this was a 3 energy attack, I think it would be much better. 150 HP, doing 20 damage to ourselves is pretty bad. So this isn't a Pokemon that I would love to keep in the active spot, especially now with red. 150 HP is pretty significant. But Mewtwo is doing 150 damage, so for 4 energies. And yes, you discard, but like, I don't know. So it's weird. I'm trying to think off the top of my head the scenarios where this would be relevant. I know at first glance this card doesn't seem very good, but I actually think Broken Space Bellow is a really strong attack, or a really strong ability. Because like, again, like you got to understand, like so many decks like just don't do anything for 2 turns. Like think about how many decks aren't attacking on their first or their second turn, right? So now instead of just ending our turn, we're able to go +1 that turn on energy, and that's 2 energy per turn. So even if we're just sort of, you know, setting up Giratina to attack, you know, it's not that terrible. Or we could again just accelerate energies with Broken Space Bellow to Giratina and then move them off Giratina with Dawn. Not a bad, you know, strategy. Realistically, it could be a way for us to get energies on Mewtwo maybe a turn earlier. That is pretty cool as well. So I don't know. I think this is a card that is going to be really good. I just don't know exactly how it's going to fit in. Psychic type is really strange right now. We are seeing an emergence of some dark type decks like Weavile and Darkrai. Darkrai in general is still a relevant card. So this is a card that I don't feel very confident as an attacking option. I mean, like technically speaking, if we're not getting KO'd, then there's no drawback. We can do 130 turn after turn. We just have to make sure that we're not going down, which kind of means that we kind of have to have Giant Cape attached to Giratina if we're using it as an attacker. It's just really interesting. This card is super interesting to me. I do think it's going to be actually really relevant. I'm just not exactly positive how it's going to be relevant yet. Again, I'm just sort of thinking about maybe it with Mewtwo as just a way to like generate those energies, but if you're playing Mewtwo, you're probably going to play Gardevoir anyway, right? So, I don't know. Very interesting card. Very interesting card. I think it's really good in the first couple turns, but then it's sort of like, what are we doing with it, right? Okay. Anyway, that's Giratina. I don't know. I got even confused myself thinking about all of the scenarios in which we can use Giratina, but definitely comment below your ideas and your perceptions of these cards. I always love hearing your guys' opinions. I really do. I know you guys watch the videos maybe to hear my opinions, but I really like the conversations that happen in the comment section. Next up is the new Pikachu EX. Yeah, there's a new Pikachu EX. Again, welcome to Pokemon TCG. You're going to get a lot. This is not the last Pikachu EX we're probably going to get, but keep that in mind. 120 HP, again, same as the other Pikachu, retreat cost of 1, but the attack is different here. So we do Thunderbolt, 3 energies, 150. 150 for 3 energies. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. So, yeah, I really like this card, actually. I know discarding all of the energies doesn't feel that good. We have something similar in Palkia, but again, think about how good Palkia is. But yeah, we don't have that 1 energy, you know, aggro attack on Pikachu. But again, think about it like this. So think about a scenario where we have red. So against EX Pokemon, we could be hitting for potentially 170 HP, but we also have the new Pachirisu Dawn combinations. We could get this Pikachu set up on our second turn pretty consistently, if I might add. But also we have Magneton. We might get other Electric type support cards, but I mean, even if it is sort of a one-hit like wonder card where like we can really only use this and attack once, it could be a really relevant card to finish games. It's kind of a win condition card, right? I mean, we already have the other Pikachu EX, which is a very good aggressive tempo card, but now we have this, which is really a big damaging attack. You discard all your energies. I think this is really a card that we use to finish the game. And like I said, with Dawn, with Pachirisu, maybe we can set this card up easier than we would previously, but realistically, I think we're using this 150 damage attack to take that big 1-hit KO to finish the game. So I actually do think this Pikachu is really relevant. The problem with it, of course, is that it doesn't have that much HP, and that's, I think, a big reason why Pikachu right now isn't super relevant, or at least one of the reasons. But I don't think it matters in a card like this because we're just finishing the game here with this Pikachu. And once we attack, you know, yeah, we're discarding those energies, but hopefully that's the last attack of the game anyway, and we're just winning after we Thunderbolt. So I really like this card. I actually do think that it's really strong. There's almost no this is actually, I think, the most efficient damaging attack in the game because Charizard is a stage 2 Pokemon that does like 180 for 4 energy. So now we have a basic doing 150 for 3. No, it's not as good of a card as Arceus. Arceus has more HP, less drawback for 3 energies, does 130. but this is an extremely relevant card. Again, I think with Red and even Giovanni, we're doing 160. That's enough to KO most Pokemon in the game, and I think that's a good enough reason why I think Pikachu is going to be relevant. So I think that's a really, really impactful card. Okay, let's speed it up a little bit because we're at 30 minutes already, and I apologize. Next up is Wugtrio EX. We saw the Wiglet earlier. This is a Water-type Pokemon that should raise your eyebrows. Water-type cards are insane. 140 HP, Stage 1 Pokemon. It's got Retreat cost of 1, weak to Electric, Pop out throughout. I don't know why I couldn't say that. This reads, for 3 Water energies, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random 3 times. And for each time a Pokemon was chosen, you do 50 damage to it. So this is similar to Dragonite, where it's sort of random damage placement in intervals of 5, but instead of, or 50 rather, but instead of being a stage 2 Pokemon, it's a stage 1 Pokemon. Instead of doing 200 for 4 energies, both 2 energy types, now we're doing 150 for 3 energies, and they're all water. This is actually a really, really good card for a variety of different reasons. This is a card that we can actually pop out throughout on turn 2 pretty often. Think about Articuno. Yes, Articuno is a basic, so you can technically Blizzard on your first turn, but Wugtrio, think about how consistent of a card Starmie is, which attacks 90 for 2 energies. Now we're able to basically, if we get lucky with Misty on turn 2, very reliably do 150 damage, even though it's random placements for 3 energies. So a card like this is, of course, a little bit unreliable. Like, if anyone's ever played Dragonite, you would know that that spread damage can oftentimes be really, really good, but also really bad because it's random, right? Like, technically speaking, well, actually, how does this card read? Because Dragonite does all of the damage at once. So, like, it could select a Pokemon and overkill it. Basically, what this does, I think if I'm reading this correctly, is you choose a Pokemon and then you do 50 damage to it. And then you choose a Pokemon and you do 50 damage to it. So, I don't know if basically, if once a Pokemon gets KO'd, it kind of goes off the board and then it can't be selected for another attack. If that's the case, if that is how this card works, which again, I'm not sure, we'll have to see it in the game. It's worded kind of strangely. If this is how this card works, this is going to be a much, much better card, because you got to think about it. Like, if you target a Pokemon that has 50 or less HP, and then you do 50 damage to it, and then it gets KO'd, then you have taken that Pokemon out of possibilities to be selected for 50 more damage, which basically means that our 150 total damage is being used much more effectively than something like a Dragonite. Also, we have Misty, so we can pop out throughout pretty consistently on our second turn, which is, again, really, really dangerous. We have Irida, we have Giant Cape to go to 160 HP. We can heal with Irida. I really, really think this card is actually really, really good. It depends. Again, you know, maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe it does. Again, you can maybe give me some insight in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions, but either way, crazy card. It really is crazy. Water cards are just better than they would be at face value because of all of the support they have around it. We also have Manaphy, so you could play this with Manaphy and Origin Form Palkia or something like that, or maybe the Wash Rotom, which also does bench damage. This is a really relevant card. It just is. We also have Cyrus, so like we could pop out throughout maybe once or twice, and even if a Pokemon is on the bench with damage but it hasn't been KO'd, we now have Cyrus to bring it up and finish it off with another Pokemon. I don't know how we're going to play this. Maybe we play it in like a 16 trainer deck and we just play straight Wugtrio and we try to high roll, like how we're playing like 18 trader Articuno right now. Either way, this card is actually really fun, really interesting, and actually really, really good. So shout out to Wugtrio. I'm very excited to see exactly how that card plays. Next up is Paldean Clodsire. I never understood why they call it Paldean Clodsire, because there's only one Clodsire and it's from Paldea. Either way, this is a Stage 1 Dark-type EX Pokemon with 160 HP. Again, we saw Lucario, it has 150. Not many EX Pokemon that are Stage 1 have 160. Executor is kind of that crown shining example of that. But now we have Paldean Clodsire. So 160 HP, and it has the retreat cost of 3, by the way, and it's weak to fighting. This has the Venoshock attack. It does 60 damage. However, if our opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, it does 60 more damage. So that's 2 energies, 2 Dark-type energies. We could be doing 120 damage. The one thought, the first thought that comes in my mind about Paldean Clodsire is that, yes, is Weezing coming back? Are we going to get a return of the legend that is Weezing with Koga, the Weezing Koga deck? I would love to see it. Again, poison is interesting. So it's 1 extra damage at the end of your turn, but also at the end of your opponent's turn. So if we're doing 120 with Paldean Clodsire, that really is actually, 30 damage from Weezing and poison, right? Because Weezing would attack. So I don't know, like I think the math actually works out pretty well with Paldean and Clodsire. Again, this is to the active Pokemon. We could play red, so we're doing basically, instead of doing 120, we're doing 140, plus the poison is 150. So I actually think this card is really, really relevant. The cool thing about Weezing is that you don't have to attach to it ever. I mean, you can, of course. It's a stage 1 Pokemon with 1 energy and its attack cost. That's an upside to Weezing, is that it is good going first, but we don't have to attack with Weezing to poison, right? So that's a really cool upside, is that we can choose to invest those energies early on into Clodsire if we know we're going to have it on our turn 2 or turn 3. If we're going second, turn 2, this card is going to be phenomenal. So I really like Clodsire. I think that it's actually a really, really good card. 120 is nothing to sleep on, especially when we have 180 HP. We can slap a Rocky Helmet on this thing to further modify the damage. So 120 plus red potentially, plus the poison, plus Rocky Helmet. This card is actually, I think, really, really significant. So I like that we're getting a true poison card. I think it's been a long time since we've gotten a, we haven't actually since. I mean, we have Scolipede. Is really the only Pokemon that we really ever pair with Weezing, but now we have a true EX Pokemon that we can pair with my boy Weezing, which I am very happy about. I love Weezing. I love the alternate art. I love Koga. I have 2 full art Kogas, and I just love the Weezing playstyle. So having Paldean and Clodsire to pair with it, I think is going to be really, really fun. That's in my mind how we're going to play Clodsire, but there is like Toxicroak as well, which is a card that can poison. Even Whirlipede in that Scolipede line can poison as well with Poison Sting. So we might be getting new Pokemon that can do poison, but Paldean and Clodsire is really, really fun because I think that the Venoshock sort of strategy, like the poison damage buff kind of archetype in Pokemon Pocket, is actually a really fun archetype with the Weezing Koga combination. So I'm really excited for this. Now, one thing to note though is that Paldean and Clodsire is not really getting out of the active spot. So truthfully, like, the reality is that once we go into Clodsire, it's going to just be in the active spot until it's not. And that's kind of just the reality of it. But again, maybe we have 2 Clodsire set up. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays. I think it could be pretty relevant. Honestly, I think it could be. I think this is going to be a pretty good card. 160 HP is just a high amount. It basically means that we likely don't have to play Giant Cape. And that's like the big upside to 160, is that we don't need to use Giant Cape most of the time. We can play Rocky Helmet and get more value out of it. But anyway, Paldean and Clodsire, I love it. I absolutely love it. Shout out to Clodsire. Next up is Beedrill EX. Very random that we got a Beedrill EX, but anyway, it's a grass type stage 2 Pokemon, 170 HP, again, a little bit low for a stage 2 Pokemon, and it has Crushing Spear, retreat cost of 1, weak to fire, by the way. 2 energies, Crushing Spear does 80 damage, and we discard a random energy from our opponent's active Pokemon. Okay, so is this going to be that relevant? I don't think that energy removal will ever be that relevant unless it's on a card that's early on, like it's like a more aggressive card. You got to think about it like this, like we're not evolving Beedrill until turn 3 at the very earliest. So yes, we can attack on that turn with Crushing Spear, but by that time our opponent probably has like 2 or 3 energies already, and they're going to just be able to attack us after. So I don't think the energy removal is necessarily that relevant. 80 damage is, again, kind of awkward. We are going to be able to 2-hit KO most Pokemon in the game, especially with red. But I don't know. I just think that, like, if this was, I know Beedrill's obviously a stage 2 Pokemon, but if it was a stage 1 Pokemon, this card would be much, much better. I think just because we're limited to basically at the earliest turn 3, most of the time turn 4 to do this attack, I don't think that it's going to be that relevant. I think that energy removal could be really good, like this effect on Crushing Spear would be really good, but by the time we're attacking with Beedrill, our opponent already has enough energies to attack. And then we also have Dialga and Arceus, which is just flying energies out of anywhere, so like the energy removal is not really relevant in that scenario either. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think this card's going to be that good, but maybe it is. I don't know. Again, we don't have all of the context yet, but at face value, I don't think Beedrill is that strong. Cool nonetheless, though. And then lastly, we have Bibarel EX, another stage 1 Pokemon with 180 HP. And for a colorless Pokemon, this is significant because, again, power creep in effect a little bit. Wigglytuff is a colorless stage 1 Pokemon with 140 HP. So Carefree Press. So for 4 colorless energies, we do 100 damage and then we heal 30 from this Pokemon. Very, very interesting. This card actually, I think, isn't that bad. I think that this is a card that is meant to be played with Water Energies and Irida, so that we can go to 180 HP with Giant Cape, we can hit for 100 damage, we can heal for 30, we have potions, we have Irida to heal for 40. this is a card that could be very annoying to get rid of. It's also a stage 1 Pokemon, so technically speaking, like a couple of mana fees, like, but I think the problem is we can't use Washout Vaporeon, so we're gonna have to use Oceanic Gift, I think, like twice for us to really set this up. Other than that, there's really no other way to accelerate energies to it. Technically speaking, we could play Dialga, but it's still a little bit awkward because then we don't play Irida. And if we're not playing Irida, I don't think there's really a reason to play Bibarel over Arceus in most scenarios. But 100 damage is pretty significant. You're not KOing any EX Pokemon, but you are 2 KOing every EX Pokemon. And like I said, with enough healing, hopefully Bibarel EX can stay around long enough to basically just kind of sweep the game. Maybe we go Manaphy into Manaphy. Maybe we get 2 or 3 Oceanic Gifts off. And then we go into Bibarel as our last Pokemon with Giant Cape, and we just start hitting for Carefree Press. The problem with this, though, is that, again, we're not doing any damage until we get off Carefree Press, so we're basically guaranteed to get attacked probably twice before we win the game. So there's a little bit of an awkwardness to Bibarel, but I actually don't think the card is terrible. We'll just have to see exactly how it kind of fits into, you know, a lot of these, you know, and how it fits into decks, really. I mean, how it plays. The interactions are going to be interesting, but I don't think it's actually that bad. Like I said, 160, that's 180 with Giant Cape. Irida heals for 40, Potion heals for 20, or Attack heals for 30. I mean, you know, we're kind of living. We're actually kind of living a lot of hits, right? I mean, that's what, 40 plus 30, so that's 90 healing in 1 turn, potentially, 180 HP. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is bad. I don't know. I like it, though. I think it's better than it probably could be. And then this is just the normal art version of Pachirisu. If we go up, I think there was some alternate art versions of other cards. Yeah, this is the normal art of Red. But that's, I think, all of the new cards that at least were teased in the trailer. Again, there's the pack art. But before we go, and before you guys click out of the video here, we have this new rarity, so it's a new symbol, basically. And as we see here, there are normal versions of all of these shiny cards. So what this tells me is that as a mini set, this is probably not going to have that many unique Pokemon, because every Pokemon, or probably most Pokemon, are going to have a shiny variant, which means realistically take the same amount of cards that would be in a mini set and kind of cut it in half. And that's the amount of like unique new Pokemon we're going to be getting, but you know, we'll see. Again, we are getting these solo deck missions, so a lot of these cards, I think, hopefully should be available in, like, starter decks or trainer decks, which is pretty cool. We have some new accessories here that's been shown, so this is this new Charizard binder card frame, and then I think we also maybe have something else as well. There was another image. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I did. Anyway. Okay, so lastly, let's finish off the video by talking about ranked matches. So we did get a little bit of new information regarding the ranked mode here, which will launch on March 28th. And it's going to be done in seasons. And here, and by the way, we're on PokemonZone.com. Link in the article will be down in the description below. Should have said that at the beginning of the video. We're at 41 minutes. Dear God, let's move on here. And wrap this up. So ranked matches, it is coming March 28th alongside this set. So the set releases on 27th. The day after is when rank mode releases. And as it says here, ranked mode will be done in seasons. So the first season will end on April 27th. So we have about a month per season. Players will be matched up against players of their skill level. This is pretty interesting and pretty relevant because right now there's no real like elo system. I don't think that this is going to be like for the most part, I assume ranking up in this ranked battles mode will be mostly determined on how many games we play. It'll probably be pretty, what's the word? It'll be pretty, I forget what word it'll be easy to rank up, basically. I don't think you're gonna have to win like 70 or 80% of your matches to rank up to like Master Ball rank. I think as long as you're like at around 50 at least, or even 45% win rate, as long as you're playing enough matches, you'll be able to rank up into Master Ball. I think that this mode here could be what's kind of replacing the emblem system, or the emblem event systems that we get basically, or we have so far, where we have like the win streak event and then like win 40 battles event. I think that this is gonna be kind of replacing those emblem events. So instead of that, we just have rank battles every month, and then you can grind up to Master Ball rank here. You're probably gonna get rewards along the line as you rank up here, kind of just sort of like almost like a battle pass system. There might be additional rewards that you actually have to get from, you know, paying for a battle pass. These are all speculations and things that I'm deriving from the Pokemon TCG Live client. We'll have to see exactly how it all works, but yeah, being matched up against players of your own skill level is interesting because I don't know if that really means skill level as much as it means people of the same rank as you, which again isn't really skill level dependent. It's just about, you know, how much these people are playing. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure. And you receive an emblem based on their end of season rank. So we kind of assume that, right? And as we see here, it says A to B on these emblems, which signifies per season. And we're probably going to get new cards every month, so that probably is how the seasons will work. And it says here the ranks seem to be based off different Pokeballs, as such, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, and Master Ball. To be expected, realistically. But yeah, I would assume that, well, I mean, we'll have to get all of the details, but I do assume that this particular ranked mode is going to be really just hopefully it's just an incentive for us to play battles in the in-game client and get rewards, maybe get more packs, get exclusive cards, things like that. And I think that's really all we can ask for in Pokemon Pocket, because right now I think that most people play the game to collect the cards, but the actual game of Pokemon Pocket is really, really fun. It's really, really interesting, and all of the new archetypes and the cards, the interactions, the metagame, it's fun. But now at least we have some sort of an incentive to actually compete and build really strong decks and play on the ladder. So hopefully all of you guys that are subscribed to the channel and watch my videos, hopefully you stay tuned, because of course all of the stuff that we talk about in our videos from the online tournaments will directly translate to ranked mode in terms of the decks that you'll be seeing, the best decks to play, and the best cards and the best interactions. So hopefully this channel proves to be useful to you guys as ranked mode is released. We'll also probably do some ranked gameplay videos, like a road to ranked, or just some sort of a fun, gameplay series. I've been wanting to do more gameplay on the channel, and now being able to do ranked battles is actually a pretty significant, I think, improvement. We don't do a lot of live streams on the channel, but maybe we'll do some more ranked mode gameplay live streams. That could be pretty fun. But either way, I think that this is going to be a really good inclusion to Pokemon Pocket, and hopefully gives us, a great reason to play battles in the game as time goes on. I would really just love to see that. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. So a lot of news today. This was all a massive surprise, but a very welcome surprise to me, because like I said, as somebody that makes YouTube videos, I love all of new cards, new clients, new game modes, everything. Whenever we get an update to Pokemon Pocket, I get really excited, because it's stuff for us to talk about, stuff for us to showcase and make content on. So realistically, I'm pretty happy. I'm actually really excited. A lot of these cards look really fun, really interesting, and some look really, really strong. So anyway, guys, we're going to get out of here. Peace out. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And yeah, like I said, just stay tuned, because we're going to be covering all of the new decks and all of the new interactions and strategies with these new cards when the new set comes out. Like I said, in just a week. So we have like 6 days until the set comes out. Super exciting. Anyway, guys, super long video today, 45 minutes. I apologize, but there's a lot to talk about. There really is. So again, guys, if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe. It means a lot to me. And yeah, we'll see you guys later. Peace out. Have a good one. And yeah, bye.